Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, everyone, and hey, how you doing? Hopefully you're having a great day and you are ready for some Computer America and, of course, computer and technology news. And, we specifically blocked out this day because you may have heard the WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference from Apple, happened today. So if you didn't catch the live stream, don't worry. We have all the highlights and everything that they announced. And trust me, there is a lot of it. So we're going to be going over everything that Apple has been discussing. This is, of course, a big event. If you don't know what the WWDC is, this is generally where they show off new hardware. It's the first sneak peek at the new iOS. And hey, this is mainly for the people who work with, around, and another adjective, or another verb, I should say, with iOS. So if you have iOS anything in your life, you're going to want to pay attention because there are some pretty big changes coming up. Now, let's go ahead and mention first things first, computeramerica.com. That will have everything, including today's show notes. It will have all the past shows. Of course, if you missed any of the great shows that we had last week, you can check those out at Computer America. And of course, there's the podcasting page. You can listen to us live. You can watch the video portion and check out some of the articles that we have. We have some new reviews up if you haven't been there in a little bit. So all that and more at Computer America. Check it out. Now, with that being said, everyone, again, thank you for tuning in. Let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and start with it. So there's some big news that we'll get to it after the WWDC because so much of it, kind of happened there with Apple that we want to focus on that. And then in any time remaining, we'll go ahead and talk about some of the other big stories. But for the first part, for the foreseeable future of the show, we will be doing Apple news. And I think a good place to start when it comes to Apple is none other than, I think this is the most anticipated announcement that was going to be there. And that is, of course, the unveiling of the new Mac Pro. That's right, the Mac Pro. If you don't know the difference between the iMac, the Mac Mini, the Mac Pro is essentially the standalone unit. The iMac is an all-in-one, like the computer's built into the back of the monitor, and hey, it's all in one. The Mac Pro is the separate tower or case for the computer, which also has a monitor that comes with it, but they're two separate units. That's what separates a Mac Pro from an iMac. And then, of course, the Mac Mini is the little trash can looking thing, the little cylindrical what have you. So those are the differences. It's been a couple of years. And by the way, if you didn't know, the Mac Pro of 2013 was the last time that they really updated this. And boy, did they update it. So you can see it here. We'll go ahead and have the video, kind of running in the background of when Apple unveiled this thing. If you'd like to check out the video, it's very, very cool. But check this out. Having admitted that its glossy trash can Mac Pro of 2013 was a mistake, Apple has long promised the next update to its most professional computer line would be a return to a more modular, less thermally constrained computing. So, this is being realized today at the WWDC 2019 and the official debut of an all-new redesigned Mac Pro. And you can see it there on the video portion if you're checking that out. Honestly, looks really, really nice. It's a bit different And let's see, so anyone out there who's simply listening to this, it's, of course, 2 units, 1 monitor, and the monitor looks almost like anything you would see out of the iMac. It has one, kind of stand, and it's a gorgeous 4K monitor. It's everything Apple, and then the case itself is, unfortunately, I hate to compare it to a cheese grater, but we're going to go ahead and compare it to a cheese grater. 2 cheese graters in a rectangle, but overall, the giant holes, of course, mean you're going to have more airflow coming through this thing, and like they said, less thermally constrained. That this was a design choice, and it serves a purpose. So, although it's a new design, the 2019 Mac Pro is also a throwback to Apple's classic cheese grater look, as the article just mentioned. The interior is structured for modularity and flexibility, addressing one of the big pain points of the outgoing Mac Pro design. And what they mean by that is if you would like a different processor, if you would like a different graphics card, more RAM, if you would like to change anything out, different motherboard, with past iterations of especially things like the iMac, the old Mac Pro, just really anything Mac, there really wasn't any good choice for you because everything was soldered together. It was very, very tightly fit together and packed together. You were not going to be able to replace any individual part without really messing up other components. That's not the goal of this one. This one is a workhorse. This thing is totally intended for big projects, big, just continuous working. And if you feel like you are going to have to upgrade something, you can do that with this one. And that's a huge selling point for the new Mac Pro because, like I said, 2013, that was not in their philosophy for their computer. So, with that being said, let's get to some hardware specs, saying that the Intel Xeon processor inside the Mac Pro will have up to 28 cores with up to 300 watts of power and heavy-duty cooling. And of course, they're saying so it can run unconstrained at full power at all times. Essentially, they're saying that don't worry, there's not going to be any heating issues, which of course, as they said, was a huge problem. System memory can be maxed out to to an eye-raising 1.5 terabytes, says Apple, with 6-channel memory across 12 DIMM slots. 1.5 terabytes of RAM. Catch that. That is incredible. I am already crying at the probable price of this thing. So 1.5 terabytes of RAM. It's truly crazy. There are also 8 PCIe Express slots, with 4 of them being double wide to accommodate larger expansion cards. 2 USB-C Thunderbolt 3 and 2 USB-A ports will grace the front of the system, which is at least 1 more USB-C port than you'll find on the majority of desktop PC systems and cases today. So this thing is, again, if you're wondering who's going to buy this thing, who did they make this for? Expect design studios, CGI, just firms, and just anyone who needs a really powerful, beefy computer. This is going to be Apple's answer to your woes. Not the woes of your wallet, because we're going to go ahead and get into the price here in just a minute, but this is something that Apple has definitely been missing. With this Mac Pro, Apple is launching a custom expansion module called the MPX module, which takes advantage of a dedicated Thunderbolt 3 backbone that Apple built into the motherboard to deliver additional power and high-speed connectivity to the components, saying that the MPX module is a giant quad-wide PCIe card that fits 2 graphics cards, has its own dedicated heatsink, and also has a custom Thunderbolt connector to hook to that backbone. Apple says that you can spec that out with AMD's Radeon Pro Vega 2 or Radeon Pro Vega 2 Duo, and you can configure the system with 2 of the latter, giving you 4 GPUs and 128 gigs of HBM2 graphics memory in total. Meaning, there are compartments, they did mention this was going to be compartmentalized. There are going to be compartments that if you need that extra power, you can go ahead and throw in extra graphics cards, and there's a spot for that. Which a lot of cases, if you've ever built your own computer, yeah, they really don't allow that, especially not 4 graphics cards within one system. That's pretty crazy. Apple will also sell an I/O module that adds 2 additional Thunderbolt 3 ports, 2 USB-A ports, and a 3.5mm audio jack. And there's an optional afterburner dedicated video editing card that uses FPGA to process up to 6 billion with a B, 6 billion pixels per second. They are hitting all of the right notes when it comes to video editing, to CGI work, to audio editing. Just about, even though it looks like it won't be built in, because again, this was a module. The thing to get 2 additional graphics cards into it is also a module that you can kind of order with it. But hey, at least they give you the option. They know who their audience is, and they're really going after it. The power supply of the new Mac maxes out at about 1.4 kilowatts. 3 large fans sit at the front just behind the new aluminum grille, blowing air across the system at about 300 cubic feet per minute. Saying that Apple throws in a blower as well, though it claims the machine remains quiet, and you can spec the Mac Pro out with optional wheels if you want to have the workstation portable. Looking at it, there are 2 giant handles on top. This thing is probably going to be a beast of a computer. I would not doubt somewhere in the neighborhood of 30, 40, 50 pounds. But hey, wheels could definitely come in handy if you'd like. I honestly like it without the wheels, but there you go. The new Mac Pro is launching this fall, and here we go. Here's the part that, so far, everything up until this point, great. I mean, this thing is as good as you can expect a work machine to be. But here's the problem. The new Mac Pro is launching this fall with a starting price of $5,999. Yes, that $1 makes all the difference. $6,000 to be able to, order this thing. And again, that's the minimum. Like all the hardware that we talked about, all the modules, everything like that. When, we were talking about how beefy this thing's get, how amazing this is, at a starting price of $6,000, and it does not include any of those modules. It was not any of those upgrades. I'm actually at the website now. If you're watching the video portion, we're checking out the website itself. And by the way, Apple always kills it with their websites. But I want to see how much this thing maxed out will be. So obviously right now the base comes with 8 cores, and again it goes up to 28 cores, if to kind of give you an idea. And every time you double the core count, you are more than doubling the price. You're looking at something closer to, I would hazard a guess. I would not be surprised if a fully decked out Mac Pro, with everything that they described, with all the modules and all the hardware that they're offering to give you, and 1.5 terabytes of RAM, blah, 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 all of that. Honestly, I'd put it somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000. Yeah, that's kind of my conservative estimate. Let's see how much equipped Mac Pro. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for this. So let's see, that's MacBook Pro. Yes, so they don't have a fully decked out price yet. We're still waiting for that, but again, so far no one has an accurate count, because Apple, they're still like, hey, we'll notify you when this is available. But up until that point, I'm betting $20,000 for how much this thing's going to cost. This thing is it will make a lot of computers look very, very cheap in comparison. So there you go. So let's go ahead and finish up this article. Actually, that's about the end of the article. Let's see. So starting for about $5.99 or $5,999. That's a spec vastly. That's with a spec vastly below. It's maxed out, exciting new features, and this is for $6,000. You get 32 gigs of RAM, an 8-core processor, Radeon Pro 580X graphics card, and 256 solid-state drive. Along with the new Mac Pro, Apple also announced a matching 6K monitor, which I think we'll go ahead and move on to next. And the monitor, by the way, not included, but this thing is really, really sexy. So if you want to go ahead and check out the video, Apple is always about the pictures. You can kind of check it out here, but Apple announces a $4,999 Pro Display XDR. So again, the computer, I'd still say it's somewhere around $20,000-$25,000 just for the computer. The monitor that comes with it, or that you will want to buy with it, is another $5,000. So you're looking at probably about a $30,000 system. Yes, that's the price of a car. As the price of a car, like a really decent car, like a really good car, new, off the lot, you're going to be paying this thing off over a couple of years. One last time, the use case for this is not your general consumer. This is not someone who browses the internet and checks their email. This is for someone who actually does a lot of work. So check this thing out. Again, the monitor at WWDC 2019 today, Apple announced its Pro Display XDR. My Pro Display XDR display, along with the redesigned Mac Pro. The 32-inch LCD display has a factory-calibrated 6016 by 3384 Retina 6K screen. That's right, we are talking about a 6K monitor, not a 4K like I first assumed. This is a 6K monitor. And of course, that screen goes almost all the way to the edge with its narrow 9mm bezel. The 32-inch display will cost about $5,000 at launch, and a Pro stand will sell separately for about $1,000 extra. Apple, I'm giddy about new hardware. I'm glad that Apple is pumping out the hardware. That's great. I can't wait. But seriously, $1,000 for a stand for your monitor? There's no excuse for that. Okay, whatever. So, $5,000 monitor, $1,000 for the stand. The Pro stand will sell separately. They said that this new display, which stands for Extreme Dynamic Range, has P3 and 10-bit color reference modules built in, as well as Apple's True Tone automatic color adjustment for ambient lighting. It's 40% larger than the iMac 5K display and has an anti-reflective coating and comes in a matte option called Nano Texture. It has the same cheese grate styling as the Mac Pro, which acts as a heatsink. Apple says it will allow the screen to stay at full 1000 nits of brightness indefinitely and can hit a peak brightness of about 1600 nits, both of which could help when editing HDR content. I think anyone out there who saw the last seasons of Game of Thrones, I bet you wish they had their nits turned up because, man, some of those episodes were pretty ish. Now, the Pro stand has tilt and height adjustments. If you're wondering what the difference between the Pro stand and just the stand that comes with it, the Pro stand has tilt and height adjustment, a counterbalance arm that makes the display feel virtually weightless, according to Apple, and also allows for the display to be rotated into portrait mode. This is great for anyone out there who may be working on code or working on anything kind of design or editing wise, because a lot of code out there is generated in kind of this scrolling screen fashion. Portrait mode has a lot of uses. It's just not for the everyday individual. They said that the module design allows for the display to detach from the Pro stand for portability and also offers the option to attach a VESA mount adapter. So if you already have a monitor mount system that uses VESA, you're good to go. It uses Thunderbolt 3 cable to connect to the Mac Pro, which can support up to 6 displays. It's a display specifically built for pros, and video editors and photographers can work with HDR images and footage. This thing's pretty crazy. So once again, the Pro stand will be available for order this fall, along with the Mac Pro, which can power up to 6 of them for a total of 120 million pixels. There you go. It's been a while since Apple built its own external displays, outsourcing that duty to LG and since 2016, but it looks like it's been worth the wait. That's the author's kind of opinion there, as Damien Lee from The Verge, and hey, it does look really nice. Apple makes good looking hardware. I'm sure someone out there is sitting out there and saying, "Wow, I really don't like the look of it." I don't care. It looks good. The problem, as always with Apple, is the price. If you're looking for something that is price commensurate, I think that a 6K monitor, for even taking out, completely removing that segment of the population that it's like, even like the prosumer or even the higher end consumer, they're not going to go for this. This is not anywhere near your out. Like, the only way that you're getting one of these in a lot of cases is if someone else is footing the bill. If some company is buying these for you, you're going to be a really happy camper. But if you're the one buying them, you probably won't be all that happy. But hey, this is what the top of the market looks like. This is top of the line. This is Apple, and you're going to pay the price for that. So there you go. Apple, great hardware. Mac Pro looks amazing. I wish the prices would come down as always, but hey, we can give that one to you. So there you go. There's the first two Apple stories. Apple hardware, those were the big announcements, but we have tons of other announcements from Apple with iOS, and I think that's where we should go ahead and kind of head into next. iOS 13. That's right, we get an entire new iOS out of this whole deal. If you have an iPhone right now, if you have an iMac, well, I take it back. We're going to talk about the new desktop environment that's coming here shortly, but if you have a smartphone or tablet, new operating systems all around with some important new features. So, this article, Nathan Ingram from Engadget. Let's go ahead and talk about iOS 13 focuses on speed and embraces the darkness. So, here we go. iOS 13, and they said that iOS is Apple's most important piece of software, and as such, the company is kicking off WWDC 2019 with a first look at iOS 13. Apple Senior VP of Software Engineering, Craig Federighi, I hope I said that right. If not, I apologize, is of course taking us through the new software, and while last year's update focused largely on performance, it sounds like iOS 13 will include a ton of user-facing features and updates to Apple's own apps. So, that said, Federighi kicked things off by touting improved performance in iOS 13, as well as Face ID that unlocks up to 30% faster. If you're into Face ID, I gotta be honest, I don't have a phone that is really capable of it, but I think Face ID, like a lot of facial recognition systems, still needs a lot of work, but I'm interested to see what Face ID can do. Now, let's see. So, with that being said, Apple is also changing how it packages apps. Downloads will be 50% smaller, while updates will be 60% smaller as well. An even bigger deal is that the apps will launch twice as fast, which could be a seriously notable improvement for everyone. I have noticed that about my iPhone. Sometimes apps do take a little while to load. I think that if they were any kind of snappier, if they open quicker and that kind of thing, obviously you would notice the improved performance there. But changing it from 4 seconds to open an app to 2 seconds to open an app, it's not that big a deal. Like, it's going to feel better, there's no doubt about it, but it's not the biggest deal. So, with that being said, Apple quickly moved on to what iOS 13's most expected feature, dark mode. Yay, dark mode! Saying that it's such a big deal that it even got its own video. And as you'd expect, the interface changes everywhere across the OS, including your widgets and keyboard, and Apple slipped in a new keyboard feature at the same time during the dark mode demo, saying that there's a swipeable keyboard just as Android has had for years now. If you don't know what the swipeable keyboard is, as opposed to, hitting A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you can swipe from one letter to the next without lifting your finger at all, and it better auto-completes your words. So, if you're wondering why is that better, every record for the fastest texting, like the world record for fastest texting, happened on a swipeable keyboard. It's just a faster, more efficient, better way to do it. Now, with that being said, also dark mode, like if there's no other reason to update to iOS 13, I would say dark mode is it. Dark mode is something that has been missing for a long, long time. I'm happy that it's finally released. If you are a fan of battery life, by any means, go ahead and download iOS 13 and turn on dark mode. It will save your eyeballs, it will save your battery, and overall, if you want to talk about performance increase, I think dark mode alone will be a big enough update. I don't know why they waited so long to do it. Now, with that being said, a bunch of Apple's built-in apps are also getting notable updates, including reminders, notes, mail, maps, and more. Apple's blowing through everything here, to be totally honest, but reminders is one of the things that's been most revamped. To-do lists can have top-level reminder, you can tag people in reminders via iMessage, and there's a new home layout that shows you a lot more information than it did before. And you can see the photos here. If you would like to check them out, we'll include links to them in the show notes. And yeah, pretty much any app that comes natively with the iPhone, they all got updates. So that's good. Good. Definitely good. Now, Maps is also getting a major update with far more detail on its maps than there used to be. Obviously, Maps has had a rocky launch, but it's been significantly better in recent years. But now there's far more visual detail, and Apple's also revamping its interface as well, including, well, Look Around, which, yes, just as it sounds like, is a competitor to Google's Street View. There you go. Let's see. So the following maps, Federici shifted to privacy, specifically location-based services. There are more granular location preferences. You can make it so that the app can only see your location one single time. It'll have to ask you again the next time it needs it. And Apple is also building background tracking alerts that will give you more detail on exactly how an app is using your location. Very important. I think that whenever we do stories here on the show, or they become really, really popular, people are always surprised at how specific location-based services get when they track you. The fact that they send a request for your location every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds. They can see you driving in real time. They can see you walking in real time. Whenever that happens and people start to get outraged, I'm glad that Apple is tackling it on their end, saying, hey, if you would like to know the location of our customer, you have to let them know every time that you're asking for their location. I think that's a great feature, and just like dark mode should have been there years ago. Apple's also discussing social logins like Facebook and Google that are commonly used to log into apps and services. Apple is developing its own sign-in button that uses Face ID to authenticate you without giving information to the services that you're logging into. Apple will allow apps to request your email, but it's up to you whether or not they want to, or whether or not you want to give that information. You can share your regular email, or you can have Apple, and here's a huge one, you can have Apple generate a random email that will forward your regular email, keeping that information secure. Those addresses are linked to the app you're using, and you can disable that access at any time. That bears repeating. So obviously, when the Apple iCloud gets compromised, or Facebook gets compromised, and think about the login services where you can say, enter your email, make an account with us, and sign in that way, or with one button, you can give permission to Facebook to share your information with that third party so that it's much easier and faster to log in. Apple is doing the same thing. You can log in with Apple, and it will use Face ID, so you have to have Face ID to be able to authenticate with this service. But if you have that, then it won't just hand over all of your information like Google or Facebook does, because right now if you do it with Facebook, they will hand over the email associated with your Facebook account. Instead, they will generate a random email. Random. It's perfect. So if you lose it, no harm, no foul, nothing gets lost, it's great. Hey, the music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Everyone in the chat room, everyone out there listening, hey, thank you so much. We'll be right back. More Computer America just after this. Stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, so far we've been doing everything Apple, WWDC, big events. And of course, this might just take us through the rest of the hour because we have a lot to touch on. But if you missed any part of today's show, you can go wherever podcasts are heard, sign in and search for Computer America. We should come up and you can, catch the latest show or any other show right there and listen to us in your car, on your commute. Take us with you wherever you want to go. And hey, you can hear my voice in your ears just like that. So with that being said, we are continuing on. We're talking about the new features with iOS 13. And, we're going to drill down into some of these other apps. But this article is doing a really good job of, as kind of like an overview. And again, I love this feature that Apple will generate a random email that will then forward to your regular email so that if for whatever reason your email is compromised, your actual email is not compromised. It's just adding one more layer of security, and to the end user, it's completely transparent. You will never notice that this is happening. But as far as Apple goes, I think this is a great idea. Now, there are some privacy improvements coming to Apple's HomeKit as well. HomeKit Secure Video is a new interface that will analyze video recorded by cameras on your devices instead of in the cloud, and HomeKit will work on routers from Linksys, Eero, and providers like Charter Spectrum. So there, Apple HomeKit, not a completely dead idea. The HomeKit's not exactly the go-to standard for home automation, but looks like Apple's not giving it up quite yet. So that's good. As for messages, Apple is adding makeup and other new customization features to the Memoji. So Memoji, if you didn't know what that is, think like Snapchat and the Bitmoji, I think is what they're called. You can essentially make a little emoji that looks like you and just a little bit more customization. People like them, and hey, I'm not going to take that away from them. These go along with a new contact card you can tie to your iMessage account so that when you message someone for the first time, they'll get your actual contact info instead of just another phone number, which is great. Hey, that means, if you're messaging someone and you want to include your iMessage, I guess kind of like business card saying that, hey, if you receive an iMessage from my phone number, you'll know who I am regardless of, if you have me saved as a contact or not. That's great. So let's see. So there's that. Photos. Apple is releasing new portrait lighting features that simulate moving lights closer or further away from your subject, as you might in a studio. More notably, Apple is redesigning the UI for editing photos in its app. Apple's also adding a bunch of new editing features like white balance and vignette to iOS as well. All in all, this seems like a much more comprehensive editing suite than the phone has had before. And by the way, a lot of it can be applied to videos now as well. Looks like Apple really put a lot of thought into iOS 13. I'm excited for this update. Apple is also revamping the browsing experience. It's going to use machine learning to remove duplicate photos, clutter like screenshots and receipts, and make the browsing view a lot more pleasant. The new browsing interface lets you pinch to zoom to see more or less of your library, and there's a new day view that makes some nice looking layouts as you browse through everything that you shot in a single day. Sorry. With duplicates and clutter removed. There you go. By the way, I hope this is a joke at in the chat room. Melter of Snowflakes. Oh dear, ran out of lunches at the WWDC. People taking more than one, leaving others without the event that cost $15.99. I hope that's a joke, but it sounds like it's not. Yeah, if you paid $1,600 to go to the WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference, you would hope lunch is included. But yeah, folks, don't take more than one. That's rude. Just take one for you. Okay, so there you go. There's also a month's view that can organize into calendars as well as a year's view. Essentially, they know that this wasn't a big deal in the past couple of years because iOS had only been out for, since like 2007. But I guess as people have grown up and matured within the iOS app, if you have photos and things from, as far back as 2007, 2008, you want to be able to view everything in some kind of intelligent manner. So it looks like Apple is tackling overcluttered libraries in smartphones. Yeah, we'll go ahead and check that out. So there you go. Let's go ahead and let's see. So let's go ahead and continue on here. iOS 13, going over all the different updates to the apps. As for HomePod, which is now the Apple's handoff, which now has the Apple's handoff technology, which can bring your phone close to the speaker, will move the audio from your phone to the HomePod, whether it's music, a podcast, or a phone call. Siri also now has support for over 100,000 radio stations. You can just ask Siri to play the station that you want to hear, and it'll go live. I'm wondering if that works with Computer America. But Apple handoff technology. If you didn't catch that, that's something new. Essentially, think about you just kind of put your phone close to the HomePod, and whatever you're playing will jump seamlessly into the other one. So let's see. So with that being said, and I'm looking for one particular. All right, I'll find it in a second. But iOS 13, all the apps and all the updates. HomePod is also finally getting voice recognition so that you can personalize your experience. It will be able to differentiate between you and your partner when you ask for the music library, send messages, add reminders, and so on and so forth. Before, HomePod only worked with one single Apple ID, which wasn't the most secure, so that's a major improvement. Essentially, the whole thing, Apple HomePod will be able to tell the difference between who's talking to it. Very cool. The Siri shortcut app will now be installed by default and feature some new suggestions to make it easier for users to build their own multi-step shortcut. You can also edit what third-party apps are using Siri shortcuts. Let's see. So next one, most notably, Siri's voice is getting a major update. I'm wondering if we can play that. Let's go ahead and check that out. So, Siri new voice. Let's see if we can play that here on the show. So this is coming to us from The Verge, and let's see if we can have this play. 1 second. We got to unmute this site.
A state at which...
All right. I think we can play it. So hopefully we don't get in trouble for this. And...
Absolute zero is the lowest limit of the thermodynamic temperature scale, a state at which the enthalpy and entropy of a cooled ideal gas reach their minimum value, taken as 0.
So there, obviously, that was the old Siri. That's not the new Siri. Don't worry about it.
All right, so that's okay. But now let's try iOS 13 with neural text-to-speech.
Absolute zero is the lowest limit of the thermodynamic temperature scale, a state at which the enthalpy and entropy of a cooled ideal gas reach their minimum value, taken as 0.
Way better.
Not bad. Not bad at all. You could definitely tell the difference there. Both are obviously robotic. Both are, you know, one's definitely an update. You can see it as time goes on. They will continue to improve this. Not bad. Honestly, Siri might, I don't know. I would have to, you know, kind of see it side by side to Amazon. Obviously, Amazon's device is very, very, you know, kind of natural. Google has one that is very, very natural. Looks like Apple doesn't want to be left too far behind. If nothing else, this catches Apple up. I don't know if it actually catapults them in the first place, but it's, you know, hey, it's better. Finally, Apple moves onto the iPad, which is getting its own specialized software called iPad OS. If you didn't catch this, I know that Fort in the chat room has been talking about iPads. iPad is getting its own operating system, something that Apple accidentally teased just before the keynote. And as expected, Apple is introducing significantly improved multitasking. Single apps can be split into multiple views. There's an app expose view that shows everything you're working on in a single app, and slide over lets you quickly flip between apps that you like using on your iPhone. It's a major redesign, and you can read more about it, which we have the article here in just a moment. But yeah, there you go. So they said that one thing Apple didn't announce today is what devices would work with iOS 13 if iOS 12 went back as far as 2013's iPhone 5S, but it's not clear if iOS 13 will work with that aging phone. So the question is, iOS 13, a lot of improvements, a lot of upgrades and updates. Now we have to wonder, is it going to be compatible with the 5C or the 5S? And the iPhone 5S seems to be like the cutoff now for how far back Apple really cares about its phones. I guess I wouldn't be too surprised if they said that this iOS 13 will only go as far back as Apple iPhone 6. You know, how many generations will it support? I'm very interested to see that as well. So there you go. Okay, so that was a great overview. That was a lot of it, but we can go ahead and drill down into some more. They have you know, individual articles here. Let's go ahead and talk about, let's see, a lot of different ones. The iPad. Hey, why not? iPad OS. There you go. iPad OS, because that was the last thing we mentioned, might as well talk about it. Looks really good. Looks really good. Like, it doesn't just look like a smartphone that happened to be hit by some kind of growth serum and it looks bigger. No, this is a dedicated operating system for an iPad. It's great. Apple showed off a slew of updates to the iOS 13 features, which we just went off. The company is intent on making its flagship tablet even more capable. As such, the updates arriving with iOS 13 include the ability to run multiple instances of the same app using Tab View. It's based on the existing split view mechanic. However, users can detach the windows and move them freely about the desktop, and of course then reattach them elsewhere on the desktop. Very cool. You definitely want that. They said that the home screen has also been redesigned to reduce the amount of wasted space presented by increasing the density of the icon display. In addition, the home screen is populated with widgets, the kind of which you'd normally find in the notification center. Let's see, so some of the other things, they have integration with the pencil has also been improved, with its latency dropping from 20 milliseconds down to 9 milliseconds. So That's not bad. 20 milliseconds is definitely noticeable. I think 9 milliseconds is also noticeable, but a 50% increase in performance, that's hugely noticeable. So good job. Let's go ahead and talk about Apple. We'll finish this up saying that Apple announced during the keynote that it intends to bring desktop class web browsing to the iPad with improved web app capability as well as new keyboard shortcuts and a download manager for Safari. Most impressive, the new iPad OS will now support external storage including thumb drives. Just plug one in and open the Files app. So there you go. iPads can now handle USB drives. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Obviously, you're going to need some kind of... you're going to need an adapter so that you can plug an external drive or any kind of external device in thumb drives into the USB-C connector. But hey, it's something. So let's see. The public beta launches later this month. The public release is scheduled for the fall in the iPad Air 2 models and later. So if you have anything older than an iPad Air 2, then you won't be able to get this. But the iPad 5th gen and later, iPad Mini 4 and later, and all iPad Pros. So all iPad Pros, iPad Air 2 or later, iPad 5th gen or later, and iPad Mini 4 or later. If you have anything before that, not for you. Anything after that, you're good to go. But there you go. What can I say? I'm really happy that Apple seemed to pick up a lot of what they've been missing out here with lately. And that's the fact that, you know, in past keynotes, Apple has been perfectly comfortable just not mentioning half of their hardware. So glad to see something for everything. Speaking of which, something that we haven't really mentioned yet, macOS. Yes, the actual operating system for the MacBook Pros, the iMacs, the MacBook Air, you know, the actual desktop computing environment is getting an update. macOS Catalina, if you have to put a name to it. macOS Catalina is Apple's next desktop operating system. There you go. I think we're moving away from... Oh, what were we on? I think we're on like Ozark or something, but there you go. So where does macOS go from here? Sailing, apparently. Apple announced that... Apple announced today that the next version of macOS, which is 10.15, will be known as Catalina. Catalina. And one of the big new features is a complete rethink of iTunes, which is now broken out into individual music, podcasts, and TV apps. Based on the quick preview from Apple's WWDC keynote, the podcast app looks a lot more useful for finding new shows thanks to a bit of machine learning. Hey, maybe you'll actually find us. Now, the TV app will also finally bring support for 4K HDR video to Macs, something that was only possible with the Apple TV 4K until now, which is great. The real question for Apple is how iTunes will exist moving forward, and here's something that I saw, you know, pretty interesting. I think that let's see, it was there's another article that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, but here it is. The subheadline from Chris Holt from Engadget saying it's another step towards the inevitable death of iTunes. I had no idea that Apple was looking to kill iTunes. I thought it was still a thriving business model, but looks like they're trying to, well, kind of get away from iTunes. Now, the real question for Apple is how iTunes will exist moving forward. While individual apps make more sense than cramming more functionality into iTunes, the separation could be confusing for people who've grown used to using Apple's existing software. And of course, we don't know if these apps will eventually make their way to Windows. Because obviously, iTunes, if you want to talk about an all-in-one entertainment system, iTunes is for music, television shows, podcasts, audiobooks, news, movies, that kind of thing. It looks like Apple's trying to segment them out so that they can, I would assume, better monetize these. You know, instead of just getting an iTunes subscription, you would then have a subscription to 4, 5, 6 different apps with a bunch of different functionality, as the article said, as opposed to trying to get everything to work within a singular app. MacOS. So they said that as for the new feature, macOS Catalina will be able to use iPads as secondary displays with Sidecar. Yes, the feature is called Sidecar, much like a motorcycle with a sidecar, and looks like you can use your iPad as a secondary display. I like that. I really do. That works both wired and wirelessly, and it allows you to use the tablet as a touchscreen controller for the Mac as well. Additionally, voice control will let you control the operating system entirely with spoken words. Great for those people who are, either handicapped or have some kind of visual impairment. Being able to control the entire Apple ecosystem with your voice, perfect. Apple says that all the voice processing happens on your device instead of on the cloud. So if you're worried about Apple getting access to your files or anything that you say, don't worry. All this happens natively within the operating system, and it's not shipped off into third-party servers that then process it. Makes it faster, makes it more secure, but of course it is harder. But hey, Apple did it. Surprisingly, Apple didn't give us many other details about macOS Catalina and said that nothing about plans to bring over more apps. By the way, macOS Mojave was the previous iteration. So that was a notable change in last year's macOS Mojave, and as we expect, Apple wants to make it easier for developers to port their own iOS apps for its next desktop OS. And by the way, for those of you who are curious, we're not going to be able to get to this because we're just about out of time. We still have a lot to talk about. One of the other things was that Apple has been working on its compatibility with Project Catalyst. You can see it here, right here, linked on the article. Project Catalyst helps developers bring iOS apps to the Mac, which could be great. So far, if you have to wait for Windows programs to become Mac programs, or of course you could run things like Parallels, but if you're waiting for that to happen, you're probably going to be waiting for a long time. But if you can unlock the iTunes Store with all the apps in the Apple Play Store, or I'm sorry, it's Google Play, the iTunes Store, and unlock all those apps on a desktop environment such as Twitter, hey, that's tons and tons more functionality that you suddenly have. So glad to see it. macOS Catalina. Mark your calendars. Let's see. So there's that one. Let's go ahead and talk about this one, which could be the death knell of iTunes. Apple has announced that it's releasing separate apps for music, television, and podcast in macOS Catalina later this year, breaking up the iTunes hegemony that's been in place for 18 years. Where does the time go? Has it really been 18 years since iTunes launched? It's crazy. Hammering a nail in the coffin of that messy, neglected software. Rumors emerged in April about the separate apps, while screenshots of music and TV leaked last week. When you plug in your iPhone, iPad, or iPod to sync, update your OS, or manage your media library, the old, annoying iTunes pop-up won't appear anymore. Instead, your device will sync via the sidebar and Finder. There you go. Hey, who knew? Apple was looking to get rid of iTunes, and looks like they are one step closer to it. Machine learning has made search in apps better. The TV app, meanwhile, offers 4K HDR feedback, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos audio, and of course, as an iOS and tvOS, TV will include Apple's own shows and movies alongside content from other providers. So if you have Hulu or Netflix or something like that, it will be included there as well. The article goes on to say it makes sense for Apple to release separate TV and music apps as it chases subscribers for its growing service side of its business, which is what I was alluding to earlier, because as they mentioned, Apple is that's where they're making their money now. It's not about selling, even at $20,000, $30,000 for a computer, their money is not coming from hardware. Their money is coming from the fact that you're more than willing to pay Apple $7 a month to listen to music. That's where they're making their money. Podcast listeners, meanwhile, have another way to listen to their favorite shows on their Macs without the cluttered iTunes interface. Hear that? Get Computer America on your Macs with the new OS update coming soon. Apple's also trying to pull iOS and macOS closer together. It broke out 3 apps on iOS several years ago. After this announcement, well, the writing is clearly on the wall for iTunes. It's interesting. I did not know iTunes was doomed, but that looks like it. So there you go. I think we have time for just one more Apple story, if we can squeeze it in, and we'll just make it an all Apple day. How about we talk about... Okay. The new Apple TV app. Because we just mentioned it, hey, why not wrap up with it? Yeah. So the new Apple TV app, saying that Apple TV is finally coming to macOS, and while it was expected that the streaming video platform would finally make the leap to Apple's desktop operating system, the company made it official today at its annual Worldwide Developer Conference, as we've been talking about. The app will be available with the release of macOS Catalina, which, as we mentioned, sometime in fall later this year. Look for it. The Apple TV app for Mac features a navigation bar with different tabs for watching options. The Watch Now tab is front and center and will be populated with a user's favorite shows, those in progress, and recommendations based on the viewing history. The app will also have a standalone tab for user library of content that they have already purchased. So don't worry if you bought things in iTunes. Looks like they're rolling it in with Apple TV. Apple TV will also support, as we mentioned, 4K HDR. Apple TV is just the latest iOS app to get ported over to the macOS. Last year, Apple adapted its News, Stock, and Voice Memos apps for macOS Mojave, and this year, music and podcasts, as well as the TV, are getting ported as well. So there you go. I would not be surprised if every single native app on an iPhone or an iPad gets some version of a Mac OS release. That seems to be what Apple's going for, which makes perfect sense. Even though they're for much more limited operating systems, they're still insanely useful. So I'm glad to see it. Okay, let's see. I take it back, but it's time for just one more. Apple HomeKit. We glossed over this one in the overview, but let's go ahead and touch on it right now. Apple's HomeKit adds security to routers and streaming cameras. That's right, think about the Ring doorbell or any other security thing like that. This is for you. Saying that Apple is continuing its privacy-based assaults on Google and Facebook. At WWDC, the company unveiled HomeKit Secure Video and HomeKit for Routers. Both services are meant to protect the privacy of Apple customers, saying that HomeKit for Secure Video will work with upcoming cameras from Logitech and Arlo. And Arlo, by the way, if you haven't heard of them, they are sister companies to Netflix. So Arlo to analyze images before they're uploaded to the internet and will encrypt that feed and store it on iCloud. According to the company, even it won't be able to see what the videos are uploaded to the server. The service will include 10 days of recording and won't count against someone's storage space. That's great. Again, huge shout out to Apple. Between this and the sign-in with Apple and the protections there, it looks like even if Apple is compromised in some way, then the end user is still going to retain a lot of their privacy. They've really been working hard on this and love to see it. So the service will include the price of an iCloud subscription. That's bad news for companies like Nest that charge a subscription premium that gives its customers access to videos saved in the cloud. HomeKit for Routers will create a virtual firewall between your full network and devices on that network. Routers from Linksys and Eero will support the device. Again, just another standard so that if you have HomeKit for routers, that means that, let's say someone connects to your home internet network and then tries to get into your other file systems, other devices on the network, either your security cameras or your hard drives or something like that. HomeKit will block that connection. So again, just kind of securing it all. Everyone, music playing softly in the background means that, hey, we're just about done for today. All about Apple. I'm happy that it worked out this way. That was about everything out at the Worldwide Developer Conference 2019. I think we did a really good job of covering that. And everyone, hey, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us here on the program. Everyone in the chat room, everyone at home, everyone listening to us on IRN, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. And until next time, hey, hopefully we can catch you here and have a great day. Thank you so much. See you then, everyone. Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Computer America. Have a great one. Bye, everyone.